The movie opens with Terry Richmond, a former veteran, cycling while listening to music when he's hit by a police car. Officers Evan Marston and Steve Land cuff Terry, claiming they tried to pull him over, but he didn't stop. Terry explains he didn't hear them due to his earphones, but the officers ignore this and question him. Evan searches Terry's backpack, finding a package. When Terry refuses permission to open it, they detain him and call for a canine unit, which will take an hour to arrive. In a rush, Terry eventually allows them to search the bag, revealing a large amount of cash. The officers suspect it's drug money, but Terry insists it's for posting his cousin's bail. Steve estimates the cash at $30,000 and asks why Terry's cousin is in jail. Terry explains it's for bail and to buy a truck, and his cousin Mike was arrested for weed possession. The officers release Terry but hold the money. Suspecting it's drug-related, Terry clarifies the cash is from selling his car and investing in a restaurant. Evan informs him the money will be held for 30 days pending paperwork. Terry reluctantly agrees and heads to the courthouse. At the courthouse, Terry meets clerk Elliot, who refuses to post bail as Terry has no money. Elliot introduces Terry to Summer McBride, a clerk and aspiring lawyer who explains the police use legal loopholes to seize money. Terry worries Mike will be targeted in prison, so Summer advises him to get more money fast. Terry contacts his partner, Mr. Liu, for help. Later, Terry files a false robbery report to match Evan and Steve's descriptions, and Chief Sandy Byrne intervenes. Terry offers to let them keep most of the money if they return enough for his cousin's bail. Sandy greedily agrees. Terry wants to see his cousin before the transfer, so Sandy instructs him to come at 9 a.m. on Thursday. However, when Terry arrives at the police department, the prisoner bus has already left because Sandy deliberately moved the schedule up. Terry quickly catches up to the bus and advises his cousin to request protective custody as soon as he reaches the prison. Terry then seeks Summer's help, and she informs him that she's uncovered incriminating information about the cops and that they can take them down. She also reveals that the courthouse judge is involved in the corruption. As for Mike's bail, Terry must get the money to Elliot's desk as soon as possible. Terry returns to the police department to confront the chief, threatening him to comply. But Officer Steve steps in, leading to a confrontation. Terry disarms both officers and forces them inside. He cuffs them with Officer Sims' handcuffs and takes her to the property room, where he discovers a stash of weapons and money. Terry retrieves his money, taking only the $10,000 needed for bail, sticking to his original plan and leaving the rest for the officers. He unloads Jessica's gun and instructs her to pretend to cuff him and drive him away calmly to avoid getting shot by the ranchers outside. Jessica uses Steve's car, drops him off at a secure location, and issues a police alert for Terry. Terry rushes to the courthouse and delivers the money to Elliot's desk. Summer heads off to get the judge's signature on the bail, but by then, the cops have surrounded the courthouse and arrest Terry. They take him to the courthouse basement for a medical checkup where Evan escorts him to meet Chief Sandy. They pick up Sandy and drive away. Along the way, Sandy lays everything out, admitting he made a mistake by getting involved with Terry after checking his background. They stop at a hospital where Sandy hands Terry his remaining cash and tells him to stay quiet and forget everything that happened. If not, they'll arrest him for 30 years for assaulting them. Sandy also reveals that Mike was attacked in prison and is being flown to the hospital. Angry and emotional, Terry accepts the deal, but Sandy warns him never to return to the town or he'll be eliminated. Terry enters Mike's hospital room, but tragically Mike doesn't survive. Terry then asks Summer for a ride back to his town. As they drive, they're followed by a cop, but Summer explains it's her contact, a friend in the police, keeping an eye on her. Summer tries to explain that there are many cases like Mike's and the police need to be exposed, but Terry, frustrated, ignores her. He gives Summer his number for emergencies and says goodbye. Later, Summer wakes up in the middle of the night to find someone has broken into her house and drugged her. She realizes the cops are behind it when she sees their car magnet on her refrigerator. She calls Terry, who quickly drives to her house. He breaks in and finds her in the shower, alive. Summer explains that she's okay because the cops injected her with a drug she used to take earlier in life. She shares that she once had a daughter but lost custody due to her past with drugs. Now she fears that even though she has been allowed to see her daughter, if she's tested for drugs tomorrow, she could lose custody permanently. Terry reassures her and sends her off to work. Unexpectedly, the judge calls Summer in for a meeting and insists she take a drug test, implying he's in league with the cops. Terrified, Summer complies and provides a urine sample, knowing the consequences. Meanwhile, Terry encounters Officer Steve, who brings in backup and blocks the streets. Terry cooperates, but Steve shoots him for returning to town. Injured, Terry fights back, tasing Steve with his own gun and escapes into the fields. He abandons his truck and walks to his Chinese hotel, where he calls Summer and asks for burner phones. Summer arrives at the restaurant with the phones and finds Terry being patched up by Mr. Liu. Together, they plan to gather evidence on the corrupt cops. Going undercover, they break into the judge's house and confront him about the police corruption. The judge admits that he has been working with Sandy for a long time. Sandy's department lacked funds, so he generated money by conducting illegal searches and forcing defendants to fight for their money in court, a battle they always lost. The judge was involved because he was also profiting, and part of the money was funneled into government programs. The police would stage traffic stops, similar to what happened to Terry earlier in the movie, and the dash cam recordings could serve as evidence to expose the cops. Terry and Summer decide to steal the footage, which is stored in the courthouse catacombs. When they arrive, they discover the cops are already there, setting a fire to destroy the evidence room. Summer manages to extinguish the fire, and they quickly steal the memory cards, reigniting the fire to cover their tracks. Terry heads to the car and waits for Summer, who goes to retrieve her urine sample. Unfortunately, she's caught by the officers. Terry watches as the cops kidnap her, following them to a secluded location. When the cops split up, leaving one behind, Terry drives into the cop's car, subdues him, and handcuffs him for questioning. Using the cop's radio, Terry contacts Sandy, who proposes a trade, Summer for the memory cards. Terry agrees, and Sandy arranges a meeting at Rebel Ridge at dawn. However, by morning, Sandy's men are waiting, but Terry doesn't show. Meanwhile, Sandy receives a call from Terry while Officer Evan thinks he has found Terry's vehicle. Terry informs Sandy that there's no turning back. However, Officer Evan discovers that Terry isn't in the car. It's Officer McGill, tied to the vehicle by Terry. Meanwhile, Terry is at the police station where he breaks through the back wall of Sandy's office. Officer Jessica alerts the rest of the force about Terry's location and they head back. Inside the station, a greedy Sandy rushes for the money, but Terry is already loading weapons from the armory. Instead of lethal rounds, Terry shoots Sandy with beanbag rounds. Jessica arrives and Terry cooperates because she is the ally Summer had mentioned. Trusting her, Terry gives her the memory cards and instructs her to release them. He confiscates Sandy's weapons, but Sandy's men show up outside. Terry hands Jessica a loaded gun, asking her to cover him as he douses Sandy's money in gasoline. Jessica turns on Terry, insisting she doesn't want any shooting, and takes him outside. Officer Steve confronts Terry, smashing the memory cards. Steve reveals that he knocked out Summer, meaning they can now kill Terry without witnesses. Officer Evan, realizing the wrong in their actions, steps in to protect Terry. A standoff ensues, but Sandy shoots Evan in the leg and takes his gun. Terry glances at Jessica, who lowers her weapon, and he seizes the moment to escape with Evan. They take cover behind a car, and Terry throws smoke grenades at the officers. Evan tells him to activate the car's dash cams, which will go live in 3 minutes. Terry systematically takes down the cops without killing them. He finds Steve and exacts revenge for being shot earlier. Inside Steve's car, Terry locates Summer and turns on the dash cams before driving towards Evan to rescue him. As they drive away, Steve clings to the car, trying to climb inside, but Summer pushes him off. On the road, Sandy and his men pursue them, with Jessica joining the chase. Jessica crashes into Sandy's car, allowing Terry to escape. Terry drives to the hospital, where Summer and Evan are admitted to the emergency ward. Before leaving, Terry removes the car's camera storage drive to keep it as evidence to expose Sandy. The movie ends here.